Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PB Political Podcast. I'm Eshan Pokhrel,
I'm Micah Bodeker.
and today we're going to be talking about the last 2 weeks in American politics. Most importantly, the past 2 weeks in President Biden's re-election campaign, and really just his general ability to serve as president of the United States. After the debate, which we covered, it's gotten so much worse for Biden. We've had now 18 currently House Democrats calling the president publicly to step aside. We've had more, a couple senators, I believe, as well. And there's seemingly been dozens of members in private expressing the hope that the president would step aside. That's compounded by just really the July 5th interview with George Stephanopoulos, where Biden seemed to be denying that he was down in polls, denying that he was, that just really sort of honestly kind of doing a little bit of a kind of role-playing President Trump with the way his mannerisms, which I kind of found interesting. And we're recording this the day after his first press conference, solo press conference since November 2023, where he took questions regarding the NATO summit that just occurred in Washington, D.C., the election itself, and a lot of other things. So just how have the last 2 weeks been, Bodeker, for you?
Where do we start? Chaotic. I think that, it took a couple of days for everyone to calm down from his debate performance, and then it just kind of didn't seem to calm down. Like, it just kind of stuck. If you look at 2020, right, when President Trump had that first really bad debate, I think the reaction wasn't anywhere near as bad as what it's been for Biden. I think that, and that's probably for a variety of factors. But he looked bad, and then he had this interview with George Stephanopoulos that was supposed to be pretty critical, right? Like, this was supposed to be a big deal. And then he goes and bombs it. He just completely, to the point where George Stephanopoulos even was like, this guy just doesn't have it. And that's pretty bad. When people that are interviewing you are like, yeah, he doesn't have it. And that's not good. And the thing is, actually, maybe his both craziest and most valid point is, like, talking about the polling. Polling has been so weird, like, in the Trump era. Because, we look at 2016, right? He was down in these various states and ends up, squeaking out maybe the most narrow victory in American history. Then we go to 2020, and the polls were, by and large, right in a lot of areas, but the margin, they still overestimated Democrats. Like, it was actually a lot closer race than people thought it was going to be. And we're still seeing that, like, on RCP, like, this day in history, Biden was up 8.8. Like, that's kind of crazy. And then if you go to 2022, that history of kind of overestimating Democrats flips, and now we're overestimating Republican support. Because 2022, remember, we're covering all these polls that are like, oh, Republicans are up 8 in the general ballot. They're up, 9 points. They get those outliers where they're up 12. Well, they end up winning the popular vote by, 3 or 4 points, and win 10 seats.
Yeah.
So I think that I actually would take Trump being up 2.7 in RCP with a grain of salt. Like, it probably is closer to Trump up 1. But the thing is, right, is against Trump, or with the way that kind of presidential elections work, like, Democrats probably do need to win the popular vote by, 2 points to win the presidency? Because you've got, they're going to win California and some of these other states by margins.
We're going to get into that because, anyways, we'll talk about that later. But
yeah. Well, and we've been talking about New York before, that New York is getting closer, which will also skew the popular vote because, the popular vote, if Republicans are doing better in states that they're not competitive in, then that's actually going to look better for them on the popular vote stage.
Yeah, and also, we're not really considering the third-party effect. Like, if you look at the RCP average for the five-way race, Trump's up 4.2 points with Kennedy, Stein, and West. This actually leaves off Chase Oliver, who would probably be another percentage in there, although I think that would be more taking out of Trump's lead. So more or less like a 4-point lead for Trump in the RCP average in a 5-way race. But yeah, no, I agree with you fully.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the two-way is tighter, but the 5-way is what's going to be more realistic. I don't see RFK bowing out. Obviously, Stein and Kennedy and what's his name? West. Yeah, sorry, West. Apologies, Cornel West. They're going to stay in. I don't see any reason for them to just say, "Oh, well, actually, we give up now." That 5-way is much more likely to what we're actually going to see. But Trump up 4.2, he's probably not up 4.2. Like, I am going to be weary of the polls considering what happened 2 years ago. He's, just being conservative, he's probably up 2. The problem is Trump up 2 is probably 4 points from where Biden needs to be.
Yeah.
Because Biden probably needs to be a D+2 electorate for Biden to win.
I agree.
So the problem is he's polling 6 points down from where he needs to be, at least with the polls. My kind of feeling is he's probably down 4 points from where he needs to be. And that's a lot of ground to make up. I mean, that it's not good. I mean, and Trump he's much better at playing from behind than he is from playing up. In terms of, as a candidate, he's much better when he's challenging the establishment than when he was in 2020 and he's having to defend his own record. When he can just go attack Biden's record, I mean, he looks much more competent and much better.
Yeah. So why is he polling badly? Let's get into a little bit of what's happened over the last 2 weeks exactly. I think most notably something that really hasn't been discussed by much, it's kind of been overshadowed, is that I think it was Monday. Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary for the White House, was pressed by in the briefing room by journalists who are very upset at the White House because apparently, we've all seen that the White House has basically been lying to the American public about Biden's fitness for the job. It came out on Monday. I think it was Monday. It was earlier this week that a Parkinson's specialist doctor has been visiting the White House 8 times over the last 8 months, I believe. And it's now been confirmed that he's been meeting with the president. We don't know really why, obviously. We don't know why. In the sense that we don't know what they were doing in those meetings. But, yeah, and this is on the backs of Jean-Pierre basically denying this, actually getting really feisty with the reporters and trying to play the victim, saying that she was telling that she hasn't lied or whatever. She came back and corrected the record. So I think that's the most important part of what's going on here, because I think it's actually flown under the radar, because I think this brings into the question, not only can Biden run for re-election, can Biden be president right now? Like, does he have the mental fortitude to be president right now? We just had the NATO summit in Washington, D.C. You're escaping that. I guess you're back in Alabama, escaping the traffic, but
the heat wave too. Oh my God.
Yeah, yes. But the point is, like, if you have 30 of the most important world leaders in the world in the same room, you don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. You don't know what he's going to promise a leader. I mean, they just left the conference with supporting Ukraine, basically trying to commit to add Ukraine to NATO, which is basically what's one of the reasons why Ukraine's in the conflict that they're in right now. It's like you don't know what's going to come out of President Biden's mouth. And if this Parkinson's specialist has been visiting the White House and it hasn't been made public, that's a cause for concern. I think we mentioned it last on the debate episode. Chip Roy filed the 25th Amendment resolution in the House of Representatives, and I think honestly, there wasn't any steam for it this week. I do think that's going to be a conversation that's going to be coming up because this Biden age, it's not going to fade away. This is in the zeitgeist now. Every time Biden speaks, it's going to be scrutinized, and we saw it with the press conference yesterday. That should have been a very routine press conference. That was the biggest moment of his political career. So I don't know. I mean, I feel like we do need to spend some time just like talking about, like, what's been happening the last couple weeks, like not even just polling, like just like this Parkinson's thing, potential Parkinson's thing, and like everything is just crazy to me.
Well, I think the main problem is that the Democratic establishment is terrified because they're probably playing from their worst political position since the Bush years, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Because, I mean, if you look at it this way, Democrats came extremely close in 2000 2004 was the post 9/11. They did their best. 2008 they dominated, and it's a reminder too that Democrats have been pretty dominant congressionally in history, and that's probably going to stay the same. Like, this is just mostly the president stuff we're talking about. In terms of the House, Democrats will probably be fine in taking the House back. In terms of the Senate, they might even hold on in states like Montana and Ohio, depending on, kind of what happens. So they're actually not looking terrible congressionally. That's not where their fear is. I think that their fear of Trump as a person and as a leader just is so much more than their fear of what happens if Republicans keep the House and take the Senate.
You can't say that this is the most important election or whatever, or that we won't have another election, and then have your potential candidates that could replace Biden gearing for a 2028 run. It doesn't make any sense. I agree. I think they're scared. So they're absolutely terrified. But let's talk about so what's been going on in the Washington side of things. On the elected leader side, now 18 representatives have come out against President Biden, starting with Representative Doggett. Then we had Grijalva, Moulton, Quigley, Craig, Smith, Sherrill, Ryan, Blumenauer, Schulten, Schneider, Case, Stanton, Glusenkamp, Perez, Hines, Peters, Sorensen, and Peterson, and Senator Peter Welch of Vermont have all called on Biden to step down. That's 18 plus one senator, so 19 members of Congress. The CBS News was reporting that, quote-unquote, potentially dozens of Democrats are going to release statements into today and tomorrow calling on the president to step down or at least exit the race. A couple of these members have actually said he should resign as well. And now the New York Times is reporting that a lot of large donors are actually freezing their spending to Biden-aligned PACs and the campaign until Biden is removed from the ticket. So this is becoming... it's not going away. Like, this is not going to go away. It's in there now. And I just don't see... Because... And we can talk about the press conference. Like, I don't even think it was a good performance. People are saying people are saying it's a good performance, but the fact that that's the bar for a good performance is, like, ridiculous. So we can go through of what he said, what the gaffes he made, and all of that. But the fact that he stood up there for an hour and was able to answer like 10 questions isn't a good performance. It's a bad performance for any other president before Biden. I mean, like, Eisenhower was doing 2-hour-long press conferences back in the day.
Well, I think the main problem, right, is that I think, and we've talked about this before, both on the podcast and just privately, that Democrats made the biggest gamble that a political party's probably ever made in terms of 2020, throwing Biden out there. Because we talked about it in 2020, right? Like, I don't know if you feel this way, but I'm probably of the opinion that Biden was probably the only one who could have beaten Trump in 2020. At least of the people that were on that stage that had shown interest. I think Bernie. I think Bernie could have beat him, but I think he would have beaten him in 2016. So I don't know about 2020. Fair enough. But in terms of being competitive 4 years ago, Biden was the guy. Then the benefits of COVID allow him to not have to be as active and mobile to show kind of, and we had these concerns 4 years ago. It's not like these concerns of his mental fitness are like so brand new. We've been saying, like, Sleepy Joe was a thing 4 years ago. Like, that was not yesterday.
It's been so long.
That started to happen. And so Democrats take this huge hedge, basically, on Biden will win, Trump will be gone, we won't have to ever see him again, and we'll figure it out. The problem is we're now in 2024, Biden is still here, and he wants to run again, and he has significantly diminished his own mental and physical capacity to be president and a candidate, because as COVID really is not a thing anymore, and that means that he has to go out and he has to be active and he's got to be up for 10 or 12 hours a day.
That's hard. That's hard for him.
It's already hard for a normal 81-year-old, right? But for the leader of the free world that also has to deal with their presidential duties and try to win re-election, that's a lot for someone that's young.
Exactly.
For someone who has basically lost it. And no offense to him, but he has.
No, he has. You can look at even like if you look at some of the like campaign, like the town halls and stuff he did in 2020. I mean, he was. You could okay. The thing is, his voice was like so much clearer. You could tell he had more energy, and obviously time's not linear. Age isn't linear. Aging's not linear, right? So like as you go up, like you're gonna have a higher risk of things happening, and that's clearly what's happened to the president over the last 3.5 years. Because like you could look at 2020, like he had an interview with I can't remember who it was. I think it was Lester Holt or something. I was watching like I saw a clip of it, and he sounded clear, like he sounded like he did in like 2010. Like his voice wasn't raspy. It wasn't like kind of muffled like it is now.
It was much more situational 4 years ago than it is now.
He's much more alive 4 years ago.
Well, and that's saying a lot because I think we would both agree towards the end of Obama's administration that he was just a normal person.
Yeah, I mean, he was like
there were questions in 2020, pretty valid questions 4 years ago. 8 years ago, he was. I don't think anybody had any questions. Maybe privately that no one knows about.
Yeah,
but
I don't think so.
Now it's both public and private everywhere.
But yeah, I mean, it's getting to a point like, and we can pivot, I guess, to talk about like Kamala Harris. The campaign has been that Biden campaign has allegedly been starting to poll test Kamala Harris in matchups against President Trump, and actually she's been performing pretty well. Actually, it's kind of funny because she's been kind of being trotted out in campaign events, and like I think she kind of sees something happening because like she has like a spring in her step recently. Kamala Harris. You can look at the Marist poll came out. Biden, so they don't actually have this one in a 5-way. Biden beats Trump by 2. Harris beats her by 1. Actually, Gavin Newsom also beats him by 2 in this poll. You can look at the YouGov poll. Trump beats them both, but head-to-head, Harris does beat Trump. Harris beats Trump in an Ipsos Washington Post ABC News poll, while Biden ties Trump. Keep in mind, all of these are within the margin of error, so we don't really know if anyone's winning here.
She has less exposure than Trump as well. Like, they would have to actually, like, basically between now and election day, you just have to trot Kamala Harris out everywhere.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, and, like, you can look, I mean, I don't know if it would work. I don't think it would work, actually. Like, I mean, I don't, if you look at the...
I think that's the only reason they haven't done it yet, is because the panic mode is set in, and they've realized that the only person that might be a worse candidate than the candidate we have is the candidate who would be up next.
Yeah, so that's where we get into, I guess, and I don't think Kamala Harris is the answer if they do move on. Well, because this is the thing, Biden's not going to willingly step down, so I think it's going to have to be at the convention, or it's going to be either that.
The delegate revolt.
It'll either be a delegate revolt or like Obama coming in, who's apparently been behind the scenes with all this, which is kind of funny. This is like Veep. This is literally Veep. This happens in Veep. Unless Obama comes out and just be like, yeah, you're done. Like if he says that on Twitter or something, then he's done. I mean, I don't think he's gonna do that though. He was at the U.S. Olympic men's basketball team game the other day. That was cool. He was dapping up Gus Johnson on the sideline. Anyways,
shout out Gus Johnson.
Yeah, shout out. But I think it's gonna have to go to the convention. I guess that's what we can talk about because that'll be fun to talk about here. Like the convention, the delegate revolt is a real thing. Like so, as a background, obviously, as you win primaries, you earn delegates. The delegates, these people, they're just random people from they're like community leaders, state representatives, whatever. They put their name as like delegates. Like they pledge to support whoever wins the primary in that region or that state. Biden has obviously won a majority of the Democratic delegates. Keep in mind, actually, some states canceled their Democratic primaries to just allow Biden to have them. Obviously, there was a primary going on. Dean Phillips was running. Marianne Williamson was running. Marianne Williamson is actually back in the race. Which is kind of funny. But anyways, Biden currently has over 3,800 of the 3,960 delegates. So he has a vast majority. And interestingly enough, the delegates apparently are not forced or required to vote for the candidate they were selected to vote for. There's a conscience clause, quote unquote, where if they feel that their candidate does not represent the interests of their people or isn't able to serve or whatever, then they can change their vote. And that's getting steam from not just people that want to see Biden get couped, from the delegates themselves. There's been reports that delegates are huddling to figure out how they can move forward. Rumors that like hundreds of delegates will at least defect from Biden. Now, where they go, we don't know. They could go to Kamala Harris. They could go to Dean Phillips, the representative who has some delegates at the convention. They could go to Michelle Obama. They can go to anybody. So, and the crazy thing is, yesterday at the press conference, Biden literally said that his delegates are free to do whatever they want. That's a quote. They're free to do whatever they want. I don't know why you would say that. I mean, that seems like kind of an arrogant thing to say, in the sense that in this position, this is kind of like, you're kind of inviting it to happen.
The thing is, right, is like, when you think about this whole that whole process, like, it's weirdly like almost anti-democratic. Like, imagine you go and vote for a primary. Like, we get that. Like, I get that there weren't a ton of options, but imagine like you're voting in a primary or whatever, and then the candidate's just like someone that you had basically no say in. It gives the party a lot of control, which is wild, because I feel like I've learned a lot about how this works from all of this talk, and it's kind of crazy. Like, the fact that like they could just kind of do whatever they want. Like, if there's enough delegates, then they can say, hey, actually, we're going to have Michael Bodeker run for on the Democratic ticket for president. Like,
exactly.
what?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Exactly. It's crazy. In contrast, you can. So, like, for example, on the Republican side, Nikki Haley, who won a significant amount of delegates, but did not get the majority, released her delegates, which she said that you do not have to vote for me. You can go vote for, in this case, Trump. So that makes it seem like a more unified party. That being said, the RNC is next week. The Republican convention will be covering that when we after the close, because he'll announce his vice president. Trump will, so that'll be fun. But anyways, the point is, there is a way to like actually like release your delegates. You can just say like, you don't have to vote for me anymore. I'm not in the race. Biden's not doing. I mean, is Biden? I don't know what he's saying. Why are you? Well, they're free to do whatever they want. What are we doing?
It's really strange, right? Like, the publicity with this, right? Because every time we see something about Biden dropping out and like he's going to huddle with his family, it's just every time it's just like Jill and Hunter Biden encouraging him to stay in.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, that's why I read every story about like, is he going to do it? Well, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden are telling him to stay in. It's like, well, he's going to listen to his family. And it seems like his family are the ones that are really encouraging him to stay in. Doesn't seem like anybody really else is, but at least his family are behind him, which I respect.
I mean, I guess it's kind of interesting, because from what I've heard and what we've all heard is that like there's a lot of people that members that don't want to come out and say it. They kind of want Biden to realize it on his own. I think the problem is that Joe Biden is notorious for having a very tight-knit group of advisors that, like, really like a yes-man circle, even more than Trump, which is kind of surprising. Maybe not more than Trump, but very close. Like, they're very, like, similar in that sense. He's had these advisors for years, decades, really, and it's just, you're not going to be able to hear any new input, right? So, I mean, it's very odd. I don't really know.
Well, the thing is, right, too, we talk about, like, the 25th Amendment. Like, in terms of the 25th Amendment, like, that's Kamala Harris, and that's the quote-unquote backstabbing that would be, and that would start just a world of stuff that is not good for the Democratic Party. I mean, you're basically your second in command's in open revolt, and it starts a caveat all over these with your cabinet.
Yeah, I actually believe that. So apparently there hasn't been a cabinet meetings in 9 months, like a full cabinet meeting of the Biden cabinet, which people kind of, I mean, cabinet members have jobs, obviously, but they kind of do their own thing. But, you know, there's typically meetings, right? I personally believe that if they were to use the 25th Amendment, which if anyone doesn't know, it's just saying that the president cannot serve their duties. We are, as a cabinet, voting to remove him or her from the office. I think Kamala Harris should also be 25th Amendmented, because she's complicit to this. Like, I mean, I think it's a fair, because that's like willingly neglecting the goodwill of the country, and Biden's not fit to serve. But we know, if she's known this, I think she also. The problem is that leaves us with President Mike Johnson, which would be crazy. Would be the second president to not be elected as a vice president or president. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but I don't think. I think, but if he steps down from the ticket, I do think that he should resign, because it's a clear I don't think no one believes that Biden's going to serve for 4 more years effectively. No one believes that, even if they vote for him. But I think a good amount of people also don't think he's fit to serve right now, which is even more important, I think.
Well, and the thing is, right, is this, like, this is a weird area for President Trump, right? Because he is in the best political shape of his career. It's not close. He is, I mean, I've seen Trump leading in more polls in the last month than I have in the last 2 election cycles that he was on the ballot combined.
I don't think he ever led a poll. Like, I don't think he was ever leading in the average in the last 2 cycles, ever.
And if he did in 2016 or 2020, it was in 2019 or it was in 2016,
Yeah.
you know, an outlier poll, you know, a week before the election where he's up 1. You know, it was just, and then he overperforms. But to see these numbers and I mean, looking at it, like, Trump is polling anywhere between, you know, 41 and 46, and Biden's cracking barely 40 in some of these polls, or mid-30s. I mean, within the 5-way at least. But that's not going to cut it, because if you look at it, right, like, look at these battleground states. Look at Arizona. Look at Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. In that 5-way, Trump's going to he could win all of them.
Yeah, no, and like that's an important point. If you are looking at polls, don't look at the national polls. Look at the individual state by states. President Biden is not leading in any states. He was down like double digits in Nevada. He's down huge in Arizona. If you look state by state, it's not the same. But I saw a Utah poll, Deseret News, I believe. Kennedy and Biden were tied at 20. Trump was at like 50, and Biden was tied with a third-party independent at 20%. It's insane. And Utah's pretty conservative, but they're not like they're close. Like they're not as like red as you would think they would be, if that makes sense. So it's very concerning. The state by state numbers are really bad for Biden. The national average is obviously brought up by more liberal states. Makes sense. I mean, like it makes sense, right? So,
well, look at Pennsylvania. Trump is up 5.3 in RCP right now in Pennsylvania in the 5-way.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. That's
ridiculous.
Biden isn't. I don't know what polls he's looking at where he's saying that, because like you're not even inside the margin of error in these polls. You've been consistently out of the margin of error for a long time.
Really within in a close margin is Michigan, and Trump's up 0.6 points.
But even if you lose Pennsylvania, you're done as a Democrat. Really, if you lose Pennsylvania, if you lose Nevada, I mean, that's 26 electoral votes, I believe, maybe 25, but you're done. Like, because if you don't win Pennsylvania, the odds of you winning Wisconsin are also low. Not to mention
Trump's up 4 or 5 in Wisconsin.
Yeah, Trump's up big, but the crazy thing is Tammy Baldwin, the Democratic senator, is outpacing Biden by like 8-9 points on the other side. She's leading her race. Just showing
this is such a strange election for so many reasons, because we're going to get like Trump at the top of the ticket and then Democrats down ballot.
I mean, split ticket voting maybe will come back. Yeah, it'd be good.
Yeah,
just the idea of it. You know?
It's strange, right? Because Trump would normally we don't associate Trump with split ticket voting, right? Biden would be the split ticket voter, meaning you're a moderate, you're voting for Biden, and then like a Ron Johnson or whoever. Yeah. Yeah, your Republicans down ballot. It's actually flipping. That's so strange. Like, that is so weird, because normally, like, it's a Democrat at the top of the ticket, and then it's Republicans down ballot. It's looking like that's flipping. And Trump is the top of the ticket, and then it's the split ticket down ballot. And that's like, what? What is going on?
Electorally, it's very fascinating. Let's get into some of these. So the press conference was fun because yesterday, before the press conference, famously, it's probably been all over Instagram. I've seen this on Twitter, Instagram. President Biden was doing a press conference off a teleprompter with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about NATO committing to Ukraine and everything for the future. So he introduces President Zelensky, but he says President Putin instead of Zelensky. And so supposedly reporters in the room heard that people were like trying to correct him, like saying Zelensky in the room, like after he said that. And then he came back to the podium. He's like, "Oh no, I mean," I said, "Oh, we're gonna beat Putin. I meant Zelensky." And then Zelensky said, "I'm better." That's kind of funny, but the first part of that is not good. How do you mistaking Putin and Zelensky, who is like they're fighting each other. It's pretty crazy. I don't even know. Yeah. Oh, man. It gets worse because at the press conference, the first question after his prepared remarks, he's talking about what they did at the summit, all of that stuff, Israel-Hamas conflict, which actually I believe they just agreed to a ceasefire on supposedly the American framework. On the first question, President Biden calls Kamala Harris his vice president Trump. First question in. And there was a funny, there's a video of like, I think it was his cabinet members. Like I saw like Secretary Lloyd Austin, and there was a couple other people on like the front row of that conference, just like and like it was like a split screen of him saying it, and one person just did this. I don't know who it was, but one person just did this, covering his face. After the others just sat there like just straight ahead, and yeah, I mean, he said some other kind of crazy stuff. He was talking about, I don't even know how we got to this. He said, quote unquote, I'm gonna put Japan and Korea back together. I don't think the Koreans are going to be big fans of that if that happens.
No, that plan.
Yeah, and then the we talked about it earlier, but the delegates thing, they're free to do whatever they want, kind of inviting a challenge. Which, I mean, hey, 20 years ago, President Biden saying that would be a kind of a badass thing because he'd probably be it's like a dark Brandon moment. Now they really would revolt against him. So yeah, that's what I. The big
problem
one
is that's a cool quote in a different context.
Yeah, exactly.
Not this context.
That's like, it's like Trump saying it or something, or like Obama saying it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not even Trump. I think Obama saying it would be kind of cool because like he was so popular, like they wouldn't do that. He's like, come try me, but like I don't know. I mean,
this is bad. This election, like when we in the future when we go back and analyze these, like go back and make it the 2024 video.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting experience because this is such a weird. Like I feel like we've covered these modern elections have been so strange for so many reasons. Of the electoral demographics, just the gaffes by everyone. 2016 weird. 2020 weirder. This one somehow is weirder than both of those combined. And I'm actually so excited for it to happen, just so I can look at the metrics and all the numbers and just, kind of understand what is going on, because I don't think anyone actually understands what is going on right now.
Yeah,
like, it's so strange.
I mean, historically, you would think that, like right now, like the 2016 to now, like era is kind of like an aberration. So you would assume that once both of these men leave the spotlight, we can say, you probably go back to a little bit more of a normalcy. One would assume. Who knows though? I think we're in a different world, so who knows? But I mean, I think Biden. I just don't. I mean, like 2 weeks ago, I said that he wouldn't. I don't think he'd drop out because I just think he's too arrogant. I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's gonna drop out. He won't drop out. I just don't see how they don't force him out. Like at this rate, like I don't understand how they wouldn't be able to force him out, because they might Horace Greeley him if no one knows who that is. He ran in the 72 presidential election against Ulysses S. Grant, but he died after the election, but before the electoral votes, like the actual votes were certified. So, like, he didn't actually win any electoral votes because he died. But he did win 63 or 66, I think. He won a couple states. He won 2.8 million in the popular vote, which is back then 44%. I have it up. 44% of the popular vote, but he died before the electoral votes were certified, so he actually didn't win any. So, and I hope that's not the case, but I mean, I just don't see how. I don't understand how they can't, like, how Biden can go. I just don't see how they're gonna let him on the ticket.
Well, and the thing is, right, is Trump is doing right now what he couldn't do in 2020, which is like the news isn't looking at Trump anymore.
Yeah, it's like for the first time ever in like
for the first time ever, Trump
years,
is not commanding the news cycle.
Yeah,
he is just sitting there watching the DNC and the Democratic Party just argue amongst themselves, and he's just sitting there. He's not saying a thing. He's nobody, like, Trump, for the first time in the Trump era, Trump isn't commanding the news cycle, and if he's not commanding the news cycle, then something bad is happening on the Democratic side, because he's known for that. Like, that was his whole thing, was always commanding the news cycle, and everything was always about Trump. Well, now everything's all about Biden, and an election like a referendum on Biden is going to go bad for Biden, just as much as a referendum on Trump would be bad on Trump, and we saw that 4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand how. I don't think they can make him the candidate. I don't think they're going to let him on the ticket. Like, he's going to want to be on there. I just don't think they're going to let him on there.
And then they got to figure out what to do. I mean,
yeah.
Because then you have basically, a month and a half before the election, 2 months to peddle out your candidate. I mean, literally everywhere.
That might be better, because that's what used to happen before, like, the last 20 years, or I mean, probably like the last 12 years. That's what used to happen. You have the convention, they pick their candidate, then you start campaigning. I miss those days. That was so much better, just so much more, But yeah, I mean, I think it would actually benefit them if they had a new candidate earlier or later in. Your first public appearance is the debate, and they're just like, oh, who's this guy? Cool, he sounds good. I mean, like, that might work. I don't know.
Well, and it probably throws a wrench in Trump's plans, because Trump can't just... You have to completely change your strategy for debating anyone that's not Biden.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, who... Oh, yeah, speaking of that, Trump will pick his vice president by the by the middle of next week. Who's your prediction? Your final prediction on record?
Oh, give me J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance? I think he goes Glenn Youngkin. Because, so this is what happened. So I think he would have went J.D. Vance if he thinks Biden's going to run. I don't think he'll think Biden's going to run. And I think he'll go with Youngkin, because if you have Youngkin, I think he would have went with Vance if Biden wasn't running. If he dropped out. It's too late now. Youngkin is a moderate Republican from Virginia. Virginia's been competitive, quote unquote, in polling. Not the end all be all, but like, if you have Biden against Trump, you're looking at a 380, 400 electoral vote potential. Like, you could go all in. Like, you could have Virginia.
I think Glenn Youngkin also would wipe the floor with Kamala Harris in a debate.
Oh yeah, no, Glenn Youngkin's he's a good like candidate for he's a good general candidate. Like, he's a popular guy. He beat a Democrat in Virginia, which is pretty hard. And he just seems like he's a good anti-Trump. He's like a deterrent. He's like a real relaxed guy.
He's like Mike Pence without the evangelical vote.
He's like Mike Pence, but he's not a lizard. So
that works too.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's not a fly that lands on his head in the debate this time.
That's true.
I think actually Youngkin is a better VP pick than Pence was.
I think Youngkin's a good pick. I think Youngkin wins you some states that haven't. Like, I think Youngkin could win you Minnesota, could win you Virginia, could win you.
It's mighty close.
I mean, I think he's popular in Virginia. So hey, we'll see, because I think he's like a perfect, like, even if Trump goes because Trump also has his own mental issues that we don't talk about really. He also makes gaffes all the time. The difference is he's always made them, but they're getting more and more. I think that Youngkin's a good it's kind of like what Kamala Harris could have been, maybe. I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with Youngkin. We'll see though, because he's been prepping Senator Marco Rubio of Florida, Governor Doug Burgum of North Dakota, and then Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. But who really knows with him? He's gonna pick right before he gets on stage. So if he announces it at the convention,
Trump thing, by the way.
Yeah, no, he said he wants to do it at the convention, which would be cool, because that's what they used to do, announce at the convention. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe we're getting back to norms. Maybe President Trump, of all people, are going to bring us back to like how political like races used to be run in the U.S. Of all people, I don't know. That'd be crazy. That'd be a crazy character arc.
Oh my God! Don't even get me started.
But yeah, all right. Final prediction: will Biden be off the ticket in 2 weeks? Will Biden still be on the presidential ticket?
Give me yes right now. Give me yes.
Yeah.
But ask me again in 2 weeks.
All right, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna change my mind. I'm gonna say no. I believe CBS. There's gonna be a lot of Democrats coming out this weekend. They're all gonna be at home. They're all gonna be facing constituents. It's a work week, right? It's a district work week, so they're all going home. They're gonna have to face the noise, and I think these people are gonna just be fed up, because I think the constituents are gonna be fed up. And I think a lot of these these down ballot or Democrats that are fighting for their lives in Congress are going to be, and senators too, are going to be freaked out, and they're going to, for good reason, and they're going to pull the trigger. So that's my prediction. But yeah, that's our little post debate pre-convention podcast. A lot of fun. It's always fun to talk about some random stuff like this. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for continuing to support the debate. The debate podcast did really well. It's one of the best performing podcasts so far. We want to keep bringing just our analysis of what's going on for y'all this election cycle. So appreciate y'all listening to that. Share that around if you can, and share this around if you can. So yeah, I guess thank y'all for listening. I'm Eshan Pokhrel.
I'm Michael Bodeker.
And goodbye.